Financial. My name is Lorenzo Uribe, and I'm one of the co-founders of Athena Financial, and I'm excited to have a great group of experts in this field, that's going to provide value to you, the first responders. So either you're a police officer, dispatcher, a first responder, or a family member of one, we welcome you and thank you for being here. So I've been a police officer for approximately 15 years, and the first 10 I did in LA County in a city called Long Beach, California. So after 10 years there, I moved to Orange County Police Department, where I've been there since. I'm married to a beautiful Annette Uribe, who's also one of the speakers in this call, and I have the pleasure of calling her my business partner as well. We have a little munchkin that's a year and 8 months old, and we are expecting our second munchkin in October. So we're super excited for that. Little truth be told, approximately somewhere between 3 to 4 years ago, I was placed on admin leave. I was placed on administrative leave, which you cops know that's pretty bad, right? But luckily, the internally generated complaint came back as exonerated. So that means, exonerated means it wasn't found true. But during my time at the beach, I have to admit, it was pretty sobering. What I mean by sobering is that it was a life checker. I really took a step back, and I thank God for that incident. Why? Because I noticed that I was becoming mediocre. I was becoming complacent of where I was. What do I mean by that? Well, yeah, I've been a police officer by that time by 12 years. However, I had already started business. We had investment properties in Washington and Southern California. However, we wanted more, and I was slowing down, right? I became too happy of where I was, and I felt that my job was secure. So that was a culture shock for me. So why I mentioned that? Well, I mentioned that I'm trying to be as transparent as I can because of what happened during that incident, that time on the beach. I sought education, which in turn led me to meet a gentleman that introduced me to this field. And since then, which is why I thank God that we really started this business. We started Athena Financial Group for one of the purposes of to help our brothers and sisters in blue, which we strongly love. Why I say we is because my partner, actually 2 of my partners, my previous partners, are here in this business as well, and their wives. So this is definitely a law enforcement friendly, secure business, and we are definitely here to provide the most value we can for our brothers and sisters in blue and to their families. So we definitely have your effing backs. When I mean by effing, I mean financial backs. All right. So let's get started. I would love to present the first speaker that will be dropping some knowledge. So take it away.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Annette Uribe, and I am the lucky wife of Lorenzo Uribe. I've been a cop wife for going on 5 years. Time flies when you're with this guy, so I lose track. But knowing the what I was getting into, I guess you can say, as a girlfriend of dating a police officer. We've been dating for 10 years. And first and foremost, I want to thank all the police officers listening to us right now. I know you guys are well respected within my eyes and the eyes of my fellow colleagues, and also to the loved ones of those who serve. So as a cop wife, I know you ladies and gentlemen go through some situations that a lot of folks don't quite understand. So thank you all for joining us tonight and listening in. We're going to try to give you as much value as we can. And again, my name is Annette Uribe. What I'm going to go ahead and share with all of you is just a brief overview of kind of breaking in the topics of today's webinar. First and foremost, I'll be talking about retirement and planning for it. I'm not going to go too much into depth because my colleagues are going to be taking a role on that. but I kind of just want to set the tone for the webinar. And with that being said, I'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. Present. So can I get a verbal? I have a Mac and I can't see anyone anymore that you can see this.
Yes, you're
Am I
good.
good? Awesome. So tonight's webinar, Cop2Cop, the money talk. What I love most about this is because you're going to be listening from police officers. Like you heard, my husband, has been in the field for 15 years already. I'm lucky to be on the panel with 2 other police officer wives and another law enforcement officer. So you're going to get a lot of nuggets coming from the people who know this topic the best. So let's get started. Retirement planning. Many law enforcements, they're kind of like in a very unique situation. They're one of the few professions that actually still provides a pension plan. Now, we think of pension and we think of pension being a great thing, right? But there's still some risk, especially for those police officers, maybe the newer generations coming in, something for them to really start looking into and really planning for their future. So really our main goal and our main objective from today's webinar is we know that everyone's financial situation is different. So we're here to, one, or really to just improve your financial situation wherever it may be. So if you've already been 2 years in, 15 years in, maybe getting close to retirement, or maybe you're just a cadet who is trying to get into the academy or whatever the case is, right? So the earlier you plan, the better, right? And the more opportunities you create, the better. So with that being said, like I did mention, just keep in mind that every pension's term differs very much so within jurisdiction, the regions and the states. So the information I'm going to give you is kind of like a brief overview of what you may already know, but I highly suggest that you sit down with someone other than your HR to get more information on how your specific pension plan is designed. And with that, I know Stephanie is going to go a little bit more in depth, so that's great. And so what are some of the risks of having a pension? Well, a pension may not be enough. Why? Because some pension plans provide only 50% of your salary based on the last 3 years of service. So let's just take this into consideration. Let's just say an officer, their income or their annual income is $100,000. Well, if they're getting to their retirement and they're going to be withdrawing from their pension, they're going to be receiving $50,000 for the rest of their lives. And let's just say you're a police officer in California. That may not be sufficient for you to carry on the lifestyle that you did already as a police officer. Most police officers retire anywhere between, on average, between 50 and 55, which typically means there's still a good chance that they still have kids in college, they have a home mortgage, or they have other financial obligations, right? So with that being said, then there's also inflation. Many law enforcement pension plans do not provide a cost of living inflation adjustment for inflation. So what does that mean? Well, as we know, as each year goes by, cost of living inflation also increases. So that means that the prices of goods over time will increase. So let's just say you are receiving that $50,000 income for the rest of your life. And let's say that the cost of living, hypothetical, the inflation goes up by 2.5%. Well, think about this. By 2040, so in, let's say, 20 years more, your $50,000 pension would probably have the same purchasing power as $30,500 in 2020. So almost a $20,000 difference. Now, the last thing is pension fund hardships. So we're kind of already starting to see this, and we, when I say we, us in the professional side, we see how underfunded and mismanaged these pension plans tend to be. So it comes down to politics, right? So it's very likely that the generations of law enforcement to come might not have a pension. So if you already have a pension, you know, it's just planning for worst case scenario in case that pension plan was to be diminished or go away completely. So some strategies of how to supplement retirement savings. There's a few. I'll mention three. There's compound interest, retirement plans, and having multiple options. So first, compound interest. What does that mean? It's basically a wealth building strategy. If no one's ever heard of the rule of 72, I'll briefly go over it. It's a very basic rule. It basically states that any percentage you take that your money is earning divided into 72 is the amount of time your money will take to double. So let's just say you're gaining a 1%. Let's say you have a savings account that's giving you 1%. We all know that that's not true. It's like 0.01%. But let's say it's at 1%. Well, it would take 72 years for your money to double. Now, no one really has 72 years to wait to see that money double. So just educating yourself on vehicles that can allow you to compound your interest, your money, grow your wealth at a faster rate. Then there's also retirement plans. So strategizing, diversifying, not just relying on your pension plan. For us civilians, a pension plan is very much so like a Social Security, but we all know Social Security is not going to be much by the time we retire, right? So the same might fall with the pension plan. So looking into your options. Do you already have a 457 plan? Do you have a traditional IRA? Do you have a Roth IRA? Maybe utilizing, maybe you're working a lot of overtime, maybe start implementing some of that money, or if not all of the money that you use for your overtime for your retirement. So that kind of ties into the last one. So having multiple options. And what is that? One, overtime. For some, it might not be a luxury, and some it's a necessity. Wherever you are, just really knowing how to strategize the money that's coming in from your overtime. Maybe picking up a part-time job. We know that as a police officer, you're already giving up a lot of your time, maybe with your loved ones, spending time at home with your children, whatever the case is. But your schedules are pretty crazy too. Maybe when you're at work is when your family's at home. So picking up a part-time, or if you're working 3 days out of the week or 4 days out of the week, maybe something that can help you start really using that money for your future. I mean, we're always, as you see, we're very law enforcement friendly. If finances is something that interests you, hey, you never know, this might be an opportunity for you as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Also, real estate investing. Maybe you're into flipping or rentals or investing. Another thing is networking. This can really help you quickly get a new job. Worst case scenario, if you were to retire too soon, or you just needed that supplemental income to sustain your family. So just a few things to think about. I know my colleagues are going to go more into depth. One of the last things I'm going to talk about is long-term care. So with talking about retirement planning, long-term care a lot of the times is overlooked and not planned for. As police officers, sometimes, unfortunately, you get hurt on duty. or say because you do retire so young, some of the luxuries that you had as a police officer may not carry through or are just not the same. So what is long-term care? Basically, long-term care is, it'll help pay for any help with self-care later on in life. If it's said that 70% of individuals aged 65 and over will actually need long-term care assistance, which covers in-home care, home modifications, assisted living, nursing home, hospice. So the main thing out of this is if you can't do two of this, what they call ADLs, so activities of daily living, such as if you can't dress yourself, eat, bathe, hold, transfer yourself, toilet yourself, or holding your continence, then this will, depending on the type of insurance that you have, will pay out a certain amount of money for the rest of the time that you need assistance. I know firsthand, my dad, he has ALS. He's not a police officer, or he wasn't a police officer, but had he had this type of insurance, maybe as a rider on his life insurance, or as a separate insurance in itself, an entity, this could be helping pay his 24-hour care that he currently needs right now. So just to give you a brief overview, some of the annual long-term costs in a nursing home, these were numbers from last year. A year costs about $90,000. So say you're a police officer and your pension's only giving you $50,000. Are you going to be able to put yourself into a nursing home care if needed? So just stuff that you really need to start thinking about. Lastly is, we get asked a lot, so when is a good time to get long-term care insurance? And just like your home insurance and your car insurance, it's always best to get it before the house burns down, right? Or you get into an accident that you're at fault. So there's really three options. One is 60 days before your health changes, which I feel is very hard, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't know when, I can't predict that. The second one is 60 days before your next doctor's visit. Most individuals, they plan these out, right? They know when they're gonna go see the doctor unless it's an emergency. So 60 days before your next doctor's appointment, if you know you're gonna go, start looking into this. Maybe it's something that you've thought about and want more information on. Lastly is 60 days before your next birthday, because like any other type of insurance to do with your health, the older you get, the more expensive it gets. So the younger you are, the more inexpensive. So this concludes my portion. Let me get out of this really quick. I'm really excited to bring on the next lady. She is a police officer wife as well, and is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to taxes and other stuff to do with finances, but she's going to take over from here. And once again, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Annette. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was taking notes, because there's definitely always something that I pick up on when I'm around the people on this call right now. So I just wanted to start off by, again, just repeating what Annette said. We appreciate everything you do, and we value your time and your energy. We know that you guys work stressful jobs, or you're supporting someone who works a stressful job. So we just want to say thank you for taking the time to really just invest in learning for your future and for your family's future. So I actually have not been a law enforcement officer's wife for that long. It's been about 5 years. Prior to my husband Scott getting into law enforcement, he was in the military. So I remember still to this day when he called me and told me he was getting out of the Army, and I was like, you're crazy. We just had this conversation. You're going to stay in because you got the school you wanted to go to. And I just had to kind of like trust in God that we were making the right decision, the one that was meant for our family, and we talked through it, and obviously we planned. So one of the things that I have spent the last 17 years doing is helping families prepare for their taxes, not only annually, but for down the future, down the road, right, when you get into retirement. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you guys about that, because as Scott and I were deciding to get out of the Army and go into law enforcement, it obviously came with an understanding of a new risk that was coming. And we unfortunately saw a lot of that over the last couple months. I think you always know that you're getting into that and that there's a risk that's associated with your husband or your wife being in this profession. But it really, really hit home for me when we went through this pandemic. And this is really the first time that it did. So when we got together and we started talking about doing these seminars, this is probably the one that I've been the most excited about, because my heart is here for all of you and I want to provide any value I can. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, I've been doing taxes for about 17 years now. And one of the things that my clients tell me all the time is I want to pay more taxes, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I feel like it's my obligation as a United States citizen. I'm just kidding. Nobody has ever, in the entire 17 years that I have done taxes, ever said, please, I would like to pay more taxes. So the topic I'm going to talk to you guys about is basically this myth that when I retire, I'm going to have less taxes, right? I'm going to make less income and therefore my tax rate will be lower, right? I hear it all the time. People come in, they want me to help them pay the least amount of money they can possibly pay now. And this is their idea, is if I decrease all my taxable income and shove it into my retirement, then I'm going to be making less money and my tax rate's going to be lower. Well, let me just go over a couple things to explain why I don't necessarily feel like that's always the case, right? It's obviously case by case basis, but the majority of the time, this is what I find. So the 4 questions I just want to pose to you is, will the tax rates actually be lower at retirement? Will you have what's called a deduction reduction? Will you really be making less money at retirement? And then the last one is, will you really be able to live with less money, right? Annette kind of touched on the last one just now, so I'm sure you guys are going to see where we're going to go with that. So let's talk about history of taxes, right? When we talk about our tax rates going down, obviously I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say, yes, absolutely tax rates are going to go up or tax rates are going to go down, but what I like to do is like to look back at history. So there's a great book out there called The Power of Zero. And that book talks about, The Power of Zero. It talks about the history of taxation. So the marginal tax rate, before I talk about anything else on this slide, is the next dollar percentage of tax that you're going to pay on the next dollar you earn. So if you earn $100,000, if you earn $100,000 and $100,001, that's the tax rate that they're talking about. So in 1913 was the first time the United States government ever got the idea to start taxing the people of the United States. And that tax rate was a whopping 1%. So just think about that. We're not even that far down the road from this, right? 107 years later, and our tax rate on average is about 35%. So a short 30 years later, 1943, the tax rate hit an all-time high at 94%. So from 1 to 94% in just a short 30-year period. I guarantee you people in 1913 never thought that when they were going to retire 30 years later, their taxes were going to be at 94%. Would you agree with me? No. Yeah. So then let's talk about current history, right? And that's just trying to give me trouble. So what were some of the factors that caused that increase in tax, right? Well, we had the Great Depression happen. So there was a lot of aid going out, a lot of ways the government was trying to help re-stimulate the economy. Sound familiar, right? So what we're seeing now, we've got this pandemic that just hit, and the government is trying to find ways to re-stimulate our economy. So if I was going to go back and look at history, I'm kind of seeing things that are showing, right, that we're looking towards that era. We're also at some of the lowest tax rates we've had in a while. If you look to the far right, here you can see our tax rates kind of maintained, and then they dropped in 2018, and then they dropped again in 2019. They're not in this book, but now as we go through potentially an election and all these changes, right, that's going to start to determine where we go in the future. So one thing to think about, right, is looking at history and where do we think it's going to go, and we don't know. So what do we do is we plan. So let's talk about the second thing. It's called, we call it deduction reduction. I guess because in accounting, you have to make something sound exciting. So what I did is I went ahead and I did two examples. The example here on the left, it's not literally my tax return. I just made it look like it's my tax return. So we were estimating $150,000 of taxable income, right? W-2 income. And then I made some assumptions. So I'm assuming that we're maxing out our 401k because in this mindset, I want to make sure to push off as much taxes and pay as small amount now as possible. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So by decreasing my taxable income, the whole original theory behind this that a lot of my clients have, right, is I'll pay less taxes. So let's talk about that. Well, this year, I also have a home mortgage. So that's this $23,000 of interest you see here is the mortgage interest I'm paying on my house. I also have, you know, property taxes, which aren't going to go away. I have maybe some contributions I make to charities that I like. But another deduction that a lot of people I think forget that they're going to lose in retirement are your children. So in this example, I have 2 kids. And I have a $2,000 tax credit that I get per child while they're living in my home, right, up to age 17. So in this example, I'm going to pay $8,900 in taxes. Well, now let's look at this example. This is down the road, right? I'm going to have the same lifestyle, hopefully be making about the same amount of money because now I have required mandatory distributions from my 401k or my IRA. I might get a little crazy because the 17 years of taxes, Scott says that I talk about things that everybody doesn't quite realize, but if you have any questions, let me know. So we're going to say your pension is going to be about $130,000, right? Pretty similar in lifestyle. You have cost of not insurance. You have COLA, right? Annette touched on it a little bit. Some living adjustments that happen and stuff. So. But you're losing all of those deductions, hence deduction reduction, right? So you're going to lose your home mortgage interest because by the time I'm retired, I'm hoping I'm not paying for that anymore, right? You're going to lose your child tax credit. And those are just 2 of the big ones that people lose that I think we don't really think about as we're planning. So if you do that, you're looking at a whopping $14,949 in taxes in retirement, right? In a time of your life where you're probably not going to want to go get another part-time job or work some overtime in order to make more money. So it's just something to be aware of as you're trying to decide how you're going to be investing your money for your retirement. Because there are options out there for you that like we have Ross, we have 7702 plans. Any of these items, if you're unaware, by all means, ask the person who invited you to this meeting, or you can email any of us and we'll be happy to help you out. Okay, so let's talk about what you will need for retirement, right? We call it a FIN number, so a financial independence number. Thinking about the basic way to explain a FIN number is the amount of money that you're going to spend in a year. Right now, you guys have been exposed to the idea of long-term care insurance because of the amazing benefit it is to not be paying, what, $90,000 a year for care. But you take your annual expenses and then you divide it by 4%. So in this example, if I took $100,000 of income and I divide it by 4%, you're going to need $2.5 million at retirement. So just an easy way for you to figure it out. Hopefully it comes in handy. And then the last thing, I just want to pose the question is, how do you really want to live your retirement? You know, the whole point of me bringing all this stuff up was so many people say, I'm just going to defer my taxes to retirement, defer my taxes to retirement. But there's options out there for you where you don't have to defer your taxes to retirement. And I just wanted to show you all that there are ways to do it that aren't going to actually cost you more taxes down the road, because I would highly encourage you to look at options that don't pay taxes, because I think they're going to go up. So I hope you guys found benefit in this little conversation, and I'm super excited and happy to help any of you out if you have questions more about the tax side of it. But at this point, I'm going to introduce my dear friend Stephanie, who's going to go ahead and take it from here. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Cassidy. Like Cassidy mentioned, my name is Stephanie Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in this webinar. I have been a law enforcement spouse, girlfriend for about 11 years now, I believe. And so I really was excited to be helping the boys in blue, as we call them, or girls in, boys or guys and gals in blue, and joining them in this webinar, because I was the spouse that I didn't know what the deferred comp, I didn't know what the CalPERS information was, right? So let me see. Are you guys able to see my screen yet? There we go. Okay. Go back a little bit. So, right, I was not able to understand what deferred comp and what the pension plan was prior to me sitting down, and Lorenzo and Annette have been have played an important role in our lives, my husband and I, because prior to being a part of Athena Financial, I wasn't aware of what my husband was doing with his retirement plan and what it would do for us and our family. So I have made it a mission to really want to educate others and show them that there are different options that they also can look at. And just the more you know, the more options you know. I think whether you're around the corner from retirement, or whether you are a rookie that is still in field training, that you can definitely figure out what you want to do in your retirement plan so that you can better set yourself up in the future. And like Cassidy said, pay attention to taxes and inflation, like Annette mentioned. So today I'm going to be going over CalPERS, which is the California Public Employees Retirement System. And what I'll be showing you is what it is, how it's calculated, and just give you different options of what your monthly pension will look like. So the CalPERS pension features 4 different basic concepts. So it is a 401A defined benefit plan, meaning that it is based on a formula, not a contribution. So much like a 401k that's based on a contribution, a 401A defined benefit plan like the CalPERS, which many law enforcement agencies use, is based on a formula, not a contribution. It is a fund that is professionally managed by CalPERS. So they take that fund, and like Annette mentioned, there's a whole lot more that goes into the CalPERS funds and the outcome of the CalPERS funds and how it performs. It is designed to be payable for life, okay? Now, there are 3 major funding sources that CalPERS is operated through. That first one is investment earnings, meaning that depending on what CalPERS is being invested currently or how that changes in the future is how the fund will perform. a certain percentage is also contributed by employers that offer the CalPERS fund. A small percentage is also being contributed by you if you do take part of this CalPERS retirement plan. Okay, so this is what the retirement calculation looks like. There is service credit years, which is a number of years that you've essentially participated in the CalPERS program. That is then multiplied by the benefit factor, which is a percentage of pay that you're entitled to based on however many years you were in the CalPERS program. That is then calculated and then multiplied by the final compensation, which is the average of your highest monthly pay rate, which then will equal how much you're going to be expecting to receive on a monthly basis for your pension or during your retirement. So I will go a little bit more in depth of how this, all these three factors are calculated so that you have an idea. Let me skip ahead and then I'll go back, okay? So, okay, let me first explain the service credit years. The service credit years are calculated. I made this diagram based on if you're a full-time police officer and you are, which most of you do, get paid by the hour. There is a requirement by CalPERS for you to receive one whole service credit hour. There is a requirement for you to meet 1,720 hours. The fiscal year is based on July 1st through June 30th, okay? And it is accrued based on how you are paid. So like I mentioned, if you're hourly, daily, or monthly employers, I would think that, you know, most of you are hourly, so the requirement is 1720. If you fall under the 1720 hour requirement, then you get partial service credit, okay? So here's the diagram I've put together. Let's just say for presentation purposes, I didn't want to get into the hourly calculations, but I do understand and realize that law enforcement is paid by the hour. So let's just say you start, you've completed the 10 months of requirement based on that diagram I just showed you. And so each year you're going to earn a certain percentage of that, a decimal, so 0.10. So let's just say July, August, and all the way through April, you've met that requirement. So that will allow you to earn that 1.00 year of service credit. After you've earned a whole service credit, you are no longer allowed to accrue anymore. Therefore, in May and in June, you don't accrue any more service credit. Okay? And I'll go back to the other slide. Not sure I popped in there, but here I just want to show you really quickly some of the ways that you're able to repurchase your service credit that you may or may not know. If you have ever withdrawn money from the CalPERS account, you are able to repurchase that if you redeposit that amount that you took out. There are different, of course, different stipulations for each amount. So if you have any questions, there is a service credit cost estimator on CalPERS and their website, and you can find out more information about that. Now, let's just say that you were working for a certain agency that offered CalPERS, and then you lateraled over to a different agency, still under the CalPERS membership. You're able to combine those service credit hours into that formula to calculate your pension, your monthly pension amount. Let's just say you served prior, you were prior military and served your time in the military. You are able to purchase back up to 4 years of military service, given that you provide your DD-214 and other forms required. So I just want to point out that the earlier you purchase this service credit back, the cheaper it'll be, but I want to provide you the information to understand that if if you fall under any of these categories, perhaps you're a seasonal CalPERS worker and you didn't qualify before to become a member, but now you, in your law enforcement agency, now you do. Perhaps you can look into combining that to maximize the amount of money you'll be getting in retirement. Okay, now I'm going to move over to the next section, which is a benefit factor. The benefit factor is a percentage that you are entitled to for every service credit credit that you've earned. Okay, it starts either at age 50 or 52, depending on the formula that you are under with your employer and when you were hired. Let's just say you have 15 years in with law enforcement. You may be perhaps 3% at 50 years old, or perhaps you're a rookie and that contract has now changed. Maybe you're 2% at 55 or 2.5% at 57. You just have to look at your statement if you're enrolled in a CalPERS account to determine that. And if not, then definitely ask your employer to find out what kind of contract you're under and what is being offered at what age. Okay, let's see. All right, so now I'm going to go over what is called the birthday quarters. You may or may not be aware that depending on when your birthday is, and I will generalize and say that for most plans this applies, but do your research and find out with your employer and your plan design if this is applicable to your case. Let's just say that you were born January 1st. Okay, your allowed percentage would be 2% at 50 years old, and every 3 months, so at a 1/4 or a half birthday or a 3/4, that increases. Let's say that you decide to retire right before your half birthday, okay, which would put you July 1st based on this example. Well, instead of earning the 2.5 at half a year, you missed out on earning that 0.25% because you retired 1 day too early. So think about retirement planning. Think about at what age you want to retire, but be even more specific to think about the exact date that you will be retiring and walking away from, your end of watch. Like, what day is that? So consider choosing a retirement date that coincides with one of your birthday quarters after your birthday or after your birthday quarter to receive an increased age factor. There is a maximum benefit factor that you can reach, and once you reach that maximum, you can no longer increase it. But I will say that although there is a cap on that, you can definitely increase your service credit and the rate that you are earning, the rate of pay. All right, so I went over the service credit, the benefit factor, and I'm going to go over the final compensation. Final compensation is the average of your highest monthly pay rate. It is based on full-time pay rate, not your earnings. There may be a misconception out there that your pension is based on your 2 highest months of wages or your 3 highest months of wages. And I just want to let you know that it is an average based on your full-time pay rate, not your earnings. So even if you had 2 really high months that you worked a lot, overtime isn't often included, special pay or special assignments aren't included in those. So just be mindful of all those things when you are setting yourself up for retirement. These are based on 12 or 36 consecutive months, once again, based on when you entered the CalPERS program, date, and what your employer or what agency is offering you at that specific point in time. Now, the pension unmodified allowance, that's the, like I said, the monthly allowance that you can expect from this calculation. And I didn't go too in depth of what this calculation means, but just be aware that even within the benefactor, that's a small little formula. Even within the final compensation, that's a small little formula. So definitely run the numbers, do your research, and if you think you're going to have a certain amount at age 50, or for the really young individuals who joined the academy at age 21, and they're not going to be retiring at 59 or 65. You're going to probably be retired at 50, 51. Run the numbers and see what is being expected. Run the numbers of what Cassidy said. Find out your FIN number. Find out how much you're going to need to retire, and take into account what Annette said. Is cost of living, is it realistic to live off your pension? Are you taking into account long-term care? Are you taking into account all these different factors? Okay, this is just what you can look up on calpers.ca.gov. It's a forms and publication for state and safety employers, and it'll give you more details of what I was talking about today. Now I'm going to briefly talk about deferred comp. I know many individuals in law enforcement, this is an option, which is also called the 457B. I will say that not all law enforcement officers are given this opportunity. It depends on your jurisdiction, the county, and even state that you're located in, whether or not your employer allows retirement contributions or funds to be placed in this type of an account. Let's just say you do have a 457B. You are able to contribute this year $19,500, which is an increase from last year, which was capped at $19,000. The earnings on the retirement money are tax deferred, as well as the contributions, which means that you can forego paying taxes now, but then you have to pay taxes later. And there's different designs which we can definitely help you if you have any questions regarding that. One of the benefits I will say is that unlike a 401k plan that you may have if you were to work in corporate America, you oftentimes are penalized at 10% given your tax bracket, and if you touch it prior to 59.5. However, with the 457B plan, if you dip into it before 59.5, you aren't penalized, which, like I said, going back to the young person who joined law enforcement at 21, it's not realistic for them to work 38 years to reach that 59.5 time frame. So this fund does allow for them to dip into it before that, okay? Much like the 401k, there's a traditional and there's a Roth, and the biggest differences between those, it's that it's pre-tax dollars and post-tax dollars. Oftentimes, this type of an account is considered supplemental savings. Therefore, it is very unlikely that an employer matches it. And then lastly here, you are able to withdraw into these types of accounts. However, it has to meet certain criteria, meaning that it has to perhaps be an unforeseeable emergency. If your home gets hit by a catastrophic event and you have to bring it back to livable conditions, they may approve that because it's an unforeseeable emergency. However, if you're withdrawing funds from your 457B to pay off credit cards, that is not an unforeseeable situation, and so it wouldn't be allowed. Just be mindful of how you can use your accounts. I wanted to provide you different options. I know I went in a little bit more into detail about the CalPERS and a little bit more brief on the 457B, but if, like I said, you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'd be more than glad to sit down with you and look that over. Now I'm going to bring on Scott. He's a fellow law enforcement officer, and we all look up to him, and we're excited for him to be sharing a lot of important information with you tonight.
Thanks, Stephanie. As she mentioned, my name is Scott Eden. Not many people look up to me because I am 5'8". So, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for tuning in. I left California when I was 18 years old for West Point. Graduated in 2005 and went into the Army. So basically for my entire adult life, I've been in the service industry, serving my country, serving my community. So this is kind of something that's near and dear to me. So really pleasure to be here, and we're going to get started so we can get my screen up. Okay, so we're going to have a quick discussion on how the wealthy use life insurance. And the way that I kind of broke this down is to go into two main categories. One is protection, right? So it's not just building your wealth, you got to be able to protect your wealth. The second part is growth, and how some people may not know that you can use life insurance or your policy for actual growth and money accumulation. So here we go, the protection side of it. Now, we sit down with a lot of families weekly, daily, and we talk to people about their financial situation. If I did that with somebody who was in the law enforcement field and I asked them, how do you protect your family physically, right? They're going to have a plethora of things, right? They're going to have, oh, I keep, guns around. I have a Ring doorbell. I have a lock on my door. I have all these different things that I protect my family with. Unfortunately, we have the same conversation on finances, and the answer is usually, I don't know, I just have a job, right? But we don't actually get into how we protect that. And so what I want to look at this is you are an asset, and sometimes people don't look at that as them being an asset to their family, right? You're a part of the family, but you don't see yourself financially as an asset. So other assets we come across, we have phones, right? We have cars, we have houses. What do you do with all of those? You insure them, right? You protect them from loss. So why don't you do that to yourself? Why don't you look at yourself as important as your iPhone or your Toyota or your house, right? And so when we have these conversations, we hope that we can stir that thought process up and what you can do. And so when we say that you're not protecting yourself, I'm a big dumb football player. I like pictures and analogies, right? So as you can see, this house is, don't build a house on a shaky foundation, because as beautiful as that home is, one little wave comes and your whole life comes crashing down, right? So there's a picture of my beautiful family. I'm surrounded by estrogen, love my women, king of the castle, or at least they let me feel that way sometimes. And I would do anything for them, right? I have the Ring camera. I have firearms in my home, and I would do anything to protect them. I've also protected them financially, right? The way that I've done that is through my life insurance. If I go, be it tomorrow or at 90 years old, my family's taken care of forever, right? They don't have to worry about where are we going to get, dad's, income next year now that he's not here. It's never an asset, never a problem. The way that we do that on the cheaper side is through what we call term insurance, right? So you can get a pretty significant amount of coverage, protection for your family if you were to get hurt, or God forbid that you pay the ultimate sacrifice. So as you go through your things, that's something you can consider. If you need more information or would like to just have the discussion on what that means, reach out. We're not going to have a full conversation tonight because we could probably have another hour just on this. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we protect our asset. Okay, a little less known way that the wealthy use life insurance is for growth. Okay, so we're going to talk about growth in two different scenarios here, right? One is wealth killers and the other is wealth builders. So the way that I've kind of identified the growth part is there's three wealth killers. One is waste or budget losses. So in the police world, we see it all the time, right? $80,000 lifted truck, $100,000, all these different things, right? Which is fine. If you have the plan for that, enjoy, what you do. What we see most often is what we call income creep, which means I make, a top step guy now, I get a 5% bonus or a 5% raise, and it goes all into fun category, right? None of it goes into the other side of it. The second part that we look at is it actively managed, right? You could actually take a loss, like the stock market. We have a very diversified portfolio of what we do for our retirement and our income. Part of that is stocks. I hate to see what it's looking like right now. I don't like losses. They just irk me. I try to protect against it. But if you have your money in places that aren't actively managed, there's a very good chance that you're going to take a loss when it's not being actively managed. Okay, and the last one is obviously an accountant's husband is taxes, right? It's the biggest killer of wealth from start to finish. You'll pay taxes in everything, including how much money you make. So what we try to do is we try to look at options to both reduce our annual income and reduce the long-term taxes that we're going to pay as we're taking that money back out. Okay, now let's talk about the other side of it, what we can do to to help that growth. One, and it's been mentioned already, is compounding interest, right? Which means that the money that you're earning gets reinvested and then you get interest off that money. So it's a lot like a snowball, right? You get it going and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls down the hill. The second part, again, as a husband to a tax preparer and accountant, is a tax advantaged investing, right? And we talked about a couple of different ways. Stephanie brought up the 457 plan and how we can reduce our annual, and also some ways that where we can reduce our long-term when we're pulling that money out and we're not paying an exorbitant amount of taxes back to Uncle Sam. Okay, the biggest one that kind of, I think, ties all this together is the biggest wealth builder is time, right? So if you have 10 years, the amount you're going to have to invest is significantly more than if you have 30 or 40 years, right? So what we can really, put down right now is that you need to get started now, okay? And I think you've heard a very common trend through the speakers so far that it's not just about what you do, it's the plan to get there, right? It's not that you don't need to have a nice truck, it's that you need to have the plan to get that truck, right? It's not that you're never going to retire, it's what does that actually look like? Have you actually done the calculations like Stephanie said and said, I'm actually going to make X money when I'm 57 years old and I retire, when I'm 55 years old? And then also the second follow-on question is it enough, right? Is what you've been planning for enough, or are you planning it all? So one of the ways that the rich use this life insurance policy is they can hide money in what's called a life insurance policy, and using the tax code 7702, they can pull that growth out tax-free, right? So that's something that we do. We invest very heavily in that as part of our investment portfolio because at the end of the day, I want a non-touchable amount of money I can pull out that no one else can tell me, oh, I want 50% of that. I want 10% of that. I want 25% of that. Because if I asked you right now to give me 25% of your paycheck, what would you tell me? Probably nothing worth repeating on a public forum, right? Exactly. So make sure you're looking at ways like a permanent policy like we have to hide that money away so when you pull it out, you get it all, okay? Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I know that's a really big overview, big wave tops, as I like to always say. If you have follow-on questions of what we can do to help you get there and help you plan, because one of the ways rich people use this to get better and to get more wealthy is they have people that make that happen for them, right? They have someone that's putting that plan together. Well, we're here for you, okay? So if you don't have a plan yet and you don't have protections for your family and you don't have a growth platform for you to pull from in retirement, reach out to one of us, reach out to all of us. We'll get you set up with something good, okay? So thanks again for having us. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys. And I think I am passing it over to my former partner in crime, set 5 feet for several months with Lorenzo Uribe.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Scott. And it's always a pleasure to be around all of you. And it was definitely a pleasure to ride around the car with you, Scott. I learned a lot from you. So awesome knowledges, by the way. Just like Cassidy said, I'm taking notes. I'm definitely taking notes just as she did. One of the things that I think my presentation is just going to touch on a little bit of what all of them said, okay? So if you haven't been taking notes, take notes because I'm probably going to regurgitate a little bit of the important stuff and ask away. We do have a forum where you could ask questions. Cassie, when you said government is trying to find ways to stimulate the economy, absolutely. So I will touch on that as well. And we'll even see the 80,000 truck that Scott was talking about. So I am honored to follow up with Scott's presentation. Why? Because he pretty much touched on the basics of the importance of life insurance, as well as I know Annette spoke about the rule of 72 and compounding interest, right? So I'm gonna share my screen here. And as I share my screen, a quick follow-up to Stephanie. She said, I know there was a question too regarding military. Yes, military can buy back time as well as cadets. So if you're a cadet for a department, a police department, or if you worked for a police department that had a cadet program and you made time and you actually accumulated money from them, then you also are eligible to buy back time. So that's, check that out. All right. There we go. There's a present button. It's hiding from me. Sweet. What I'm going to be talking about is the Officer Rockefeller. Who is Officer Rockefeller? Well, that's just the name Athena Financial Group put for also known as in our world as an infinite banking concept, okay, as a personal banking or as family banking. So these are terms that have always been flown around, and maybe you have not put one-on-one together, okay? So we are here to give an example of what a personal banking system is, how you could use it, and how the wealthy have used it. So this primarily has been used only by the wealthy for the vast majority of time. And it has now, through certain IRS tax codes, it has now become available to us, the public. So let's use it to our advantage. All right. So what I'm going to go through is I'm going to give quick examples of who has used this system, okay, why they use it, our financial system currently in the U.S., the definition of capital, why it's so important, what are wealth transfers, and how we as police officers use them, and some of the U.S. statistics that actually go along with the wealth transfers that we take part of, and the system that I'm talking about, Officer Rockefeller, or the financial or the personal family banking system, with examples, graphs, and a couple of videos. Okay, so who has used this system and why is it so important? So people like the Rockefellers, which I've mentioned already, the Rothschilds, Ray Kroc, the founder of, or the one that really created McDonald's, J.C. Penney, and Walt Disney. These are just a few examples of people who have actually used this system and who has used the system to blow up their business and created a legacy, a family legacy. If you don't know the Rothschilds, by the way, they are, man, I think most of the world's countries owe them money. Okay, and how are they that wealthy? Well, it's because they use this exact system that we're going to talk about today. I am also very happy to know that a lot of officers are actually coming to this type of system. We were in the process this morning to help another officer out with this system because he sees it, he sees the vision. So we were looking at numbers, and just so happens that we're talking about this today. So this system allows you to maximize the most of your savings and investment while minimizing market volatility and uncertainty. That's one of the reasons these people use it. It's an easy to learn cash flow strategy that can help you control your cash flow while giving you more leverage and liquidity throughout your working years. Why do I say working years? Well, like Stephanie mentioned in her slides, in the CalPERS system, the younger you are, the better it is for you. So the younger you start this system, the better it is for you, your family, and your legacy, right? All right. So let's talk about the financial system. Historically, the U.S. has been driven by these three, you know, the Wall Street, the bankers, and the government. However, recently, with all the social media that's going on, with all the technology, social media is taking part of it, e-commerce, markets, 457B plans, a lot of stuff that's coming on, right? Even Bitcoin, a lot of stuff that's going on around the world is also affecting the financial system. So we need to be very privy to that. An example, well, it's this China virus, right? The Wuhan, China, that started in Wuhan, China. So that is something that we adopted, that we have now. And did that affect the system, the economy system here, the financial system? Absolutely. If you see, when we're patrolling the streets, you can see left and right, there's leases going up, there's businesses, going bankrupt. And this is just the start of it too. So an example that I used earlier with Mr. J.C. Penney, during the Great Depression, he used this system to actually start up his business. So while during the Great Depression, no bank was giving money, right? No one was getting a loan back in the day, but yet he used this system to grow and make J.C. Penney what it was a couple years ago. I say was because obviously we know J.C. Penney is no more. All right. And more importantly, so I talked a little bit about this national system. More importantly, we as officers need to check out our what we have in our society, in our municipalities, in our state. So what is going on in our state that is not only affecting our national system, but our family financial system, okay? And this is dear to our hearts too. We need to pay attention as officers. I know we do a lot on the street, but yet sometime when we take the blues off, when we don off our uniform, we go home and we, like Scott said, we almost stop protecting. You know, we need to protect those people that we care for, that we're married to, that we are, we're teaching how to be productive members of society, our children, right? So we need to protect those people. And how are those people affected with this municipality and California stuff? Check this out.
Yo, stop talking to him, bro. Yo, stop talking to him. Yo, he's talking to him. Let him go, bro. Let him go. Look. Yo, back the fuck up with him. Back up. Yo, stop talking to him.
So we know what's going on here, right? This officer applied the carotid. The people are calling it choking. And what's going on nowadays? Well, this choking is no longer, this tool that we had in our tool belt is no longer able to exist for us. The moment you do it, you could get in trouble in terms, you could get suspended, or something could happen to you. If not, God forbid, you get fired and your family's financial service or that financial income they were expecting is no longer there. I know we have a couple of guests from LAPD. LAPD is the same. You know, you guys have, I mean, hats off to you guys. You guys have a lot of stuff going on, and you guys still go out there and protect our wonderful community. So thank you, brothers and sisters from LA. Another thing is we need to check out our political system. Politics also affect our family finances in a different way.
Police use of force law here in California. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 392, the Stephen Clark Law, named after the unarmed man who was shot in his backyard in Sacramento last year. Clark's family and other relatives of people who died in police shootings joined the signing ceremony. Law enforcement groups in it.
All right. I'll stop that. And oh boy. I'll get right back to it. For some reason, the moment I saw that governor, I stopped the presentation. I'm sorry, that was an accident. All right. And here in ATHENA Financial Group, we're definitely not political. We deal with your finances and finances only. So it must have been the computer thing. Okay, here we are. Sweet. So, you know, all this stuff that's happening around the nation and our state, you know, it takes part of our family's financial system. Why do I talk about that? So, like I mentioned before, I'm gonna talk about a lot of different topics that it's gonna all combine into the final product, right? Into this personal banking system, or the Rockefeller banking system, right? So back to our personal banking concept. We are going to talk about capital. So as you can see, the definition of capital is there. We just went over some stuff that educates our financial system. Let's get back to our banking concept. So keep the whole point about this. Also, you have to realize that throughout all this that's going on, the wealthy keep making money in lieu of craziness. How is that? Well, obviously, their huge portion of that has to do with the fact that they use this type of system to accrue their wealth and continue. Remember that the wealthy don't have something that's going to predict the future, but they do have strategies that have helped them insulate their savings and investments from uncertainty and market manipulation, which we have seen. Okay, so capital here, as you can see, is the wealth in the form of money or other assets owned by a person or organization that are invested for the purpose of creating more money or production. So one of the things I guess you could say is, in order to create more wealth, they need to invest their money, right? Invest in money in a way that's going to make them money. A couple of examples here is 401ks. 401ks, 457B plans, mutual funds, individual stocks. These are all ways in which you could have your money work for you. As a police officers, we don't have a 401k. What we do have is our CalPERS system, and similar to a 401k, we have a 457B plan, right? Where you contribute money and it's deferred. Okay, so I know Annette spoke about a little bit about that before. If you want more information about that, we could definitely talk about it later. Another vehicle, you also have mutual funds and individual stocks. So these are all ways in which you could put money in, and the idea behind it is that you could take money out. So check this out. The wealthy found a legal way to protect their money while still being able to invest their money at the same time. They do this by eliminating wealth transfers and maximizing the money they keep. So how do they maximize the money they keep? Let me see. One of the one of the ways in which they maximize the money is by using wealth transfers, by actually declining wealth transfers. The whole idea is to do as little wealth transfer as possible. So what do you think is the biggest wealth transfer you have in your lifetime for those participants? I know Cassidy actually touched on it. By the way, a wealth transfer is the transfer of your cash, of your money. When you part cash from your hand, from your bank account, that is when money leaves, that's a wealth transfer, right? You no longer have it. So the whole idea is to keep as much money as you can. So what is one of the most biggest wealth transfers in your lifetime? Cassie actually touched on it. It's actually taxes and interest. Okay, in your lifetime, you're going to pay so much taxes that you won't even realize. The whole idea, like Cassie mentioned, is to structure your financial planning so much so that, and Scott touched on it, that you could save as much taxes as possible and not pay Uncle Sam if you don't have to, right? What's fair, it's fair, but nothing more. So I'm going to share with you a couple of statistics from the US. And why I share this is that you could start thinking, where do you transfer, where do you part money? Where is wealth transfer going on in your families, okay? And, let this sink in. This is when you should kind of see yourself, look at a mirror and see where your money is leaking. Okay, according to GoBanking.com, as of 2018, 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. That's a sad figure. And the more we go out, our team goes out and helps family, this figure is actually very live and well today. So it was a shock to me when I saw that in checking out families, but we're able to place them in a better place. So that's always awesome. 42% of Americans have less than $10,000 put away for retirement. That's super sad. People are expecting, that Social Security is going to take care of them. Officers are thinking that CalPERS is enough, or that their deferred comp is miraculously going to double, or they forget that they're going to be not penalized, but they're going to be charged. They're going to be taxed on the money that they're going to take out. Average credit card debt for Americans is $6,194. Average credit card interest rate is from 15.49 to 22%. It depends on what type of credit card. Average auto borrower has a balance of $18,500 in debt. That's what TransUnion said last quarter of last year. So people say, okay, but actually a lot of officers, and I know in my department, and I know we're in other places, that they're like, well, I like paying stuff with cash. you know, I save up and I pay with cash. So that's really not a problem with me. Well, yeah, it can be. You might, as you'll see later on in the slides, you're not doing yourself any service, okay? So you might want to change that up. Okay, continued wealth transfer. Like, I was trying to be generous. They put $50,000 lifted truck, but Scott said $80,000. So officers do have, they love their trucks. So $10,000 vacations. You know, everybody has guns. Like Scott mentioned. You know, you do want to protect yourself, but when is it overkill? Do you have 15 guns? I mean, how many are you going to shoot at the same time, right? And I love my Second Amendment, though, so don't get me wrong. And 35% in taxes. So, of course, we can't escape taxes, but you have to think about it. That is a wealth transfer. That is, money's going to leave you. These are all lost capital potentials that you can be making. All right, so we're going to have here Officer Rockefeller. As a police officer, dispatcher, or first responder, you will agree that our income is somewhat finite. What I mean by this is that there is a specific amount of money you will make in your lifetime. Okay. What I mean by that? So, what I mean, throughout the lifetime and whatever, so we're officers, well, I'll explain with this next example. If I could, in your lifetime, if I knew how much money you're going to make in your lifetime, that finite number, if I wrote you a check for that amount of number and I gave you the check right now, what would you do with it? Would you spend it? Would you save it? Or would you invest it? Save, spend, invest. So what would you do with it? See, think about this for a moment. For your lifetime, right? So now I want you to check this out. I'm going to give an example, and let's see if this works. So in this example, let's say this police officer here is a male worker, age 42. His retirement age is at 65. His current income is at $150,000 a year with an income growth potential of 3%. And of course, as police officers, we have our union fighting for us when it comes to the increase of pay. So let's borrow with me when this example it says income growth of 3% a year. And at the same time, this officer here has a current savings plan of $100,000 in his savings plan with accrued interest of, let's say, 6%. Okay, his ROI invest is 6%. So his whole life, okay, his income potential, how much money he's going to make with those numbers alone is $4,867. $4,867,933. Okay, so that's how much money he's going to bring in from his income potential. Okay, but what about his savings plan? What about if he started his savings at 100 with an interest of 6%? Check this out. The total wealth potential for this officer is $10,166,640. Okay, this is significant difference. So this is an example of Annette's rule of 72, that the exponential growth of how that rule makes it so that by 6% every year, when you put into that principle, your wealth accumulates, right? That's a compound interest. That's a great example of compound interest. But you have to realize that no one's going to write you that check, right? I'm not going to be writing you a check here for the amount of money that you made the whole lifetime. So what are you going to do about it? Okay, you will have to do your part to spend your money and invest it wisely. So this type of system, there's three types of systems that police officers usually do. There's three types of cops, excuse me. There's the borrowers, savers, and the wealthy. Let me get out of that. borrowers, savers, and the wealthy. I'm gonna go through the video here. So let's see. All right. So here you're going to see officer one. Let's call him officer borrower. This officer borrower, if you can see the graph, the black horizontal line, is zero, so $0. If you see the graph, well, it's going to move. When this officer borrows money, he's in the negative, right? And he works now overtime. He's an overtime whore to pay off that loan. Okay, and then so he buys a house and he works more and more overtime he gets another loan to go take his kid to college, and then he works a lot of overtime to pay off a loan, and he returns to zero, right? Then all of a sudden he wants to go on a vacation, so he gets credit card, he borrows money, and then he has to work later to a lot of overtime, a lot of street justice or whatnot, and then all of a sudden, boom, you come back to zero when you pay it off. So this is one officer, okay? This officer always pays interest and always comes back to zero. This officer does not have a wealth creation plan. Okay, the second type of officer, let's call this officer saver. Officer saver, we see is that a lot of these officers practice the Dave Ramsey strategy, which is great to get out of debt, by the way. So this officer saves a lot of money, which is great. They save money, and then what happens when they want to buy a car? Boom. It goes to zero, right? Or minimal. And then they start working again. They start saving money, like this graph says, and then they buy a house. Boom, their cash goes down to zero or goes down again. Then they start saving money, and boom, it goes down to zero again or minimizes it. This flow reminds me a lot of like my grandparents, my uncles. That's the type of mentality that they have, right? The baby boomer mentality. A lot of them have that mentality. You could also find this mentality in the book The Millionaire Next Door. So if you guys like reading, check out The Millionaire Next Door. This is pretty much the strategy that they were talking about in that book, or the Dave Ramsey strategy, right? And then lastly, there's the officer wealth accumulator, so wealth creator. The third officer is a wealth creator. So this officer, what he does is that he uses assets, okay, that he has or he has invested in, and while he's investing those assets, he borrows from the same assets he's invested to make the purchases, okay? And check out what happens. He pays off the investment that he made, and then when he's ready again, through those investments, he borrows money again. And what happens, as you can see here, well, with officer wealth creator, the green light or his savings, another example, keeps going up and never goes down, okay? So he's actually borrowing money from himself, hence the term personal banking, all right? That's where that term came out from. Wealth creator. So how does it work, right? Build up your equity. Like I was saying, you take needed money out and then you repay it. Okay. So some people, it's not as complicated as you think it is. You already have used probably or have heard of examples like this. An example, it's like your home equity line of credit, like a HELOC, right? That's an example of that. So wealth creators, the rule of 72, like they touched on a little bit. And right now I'm gonna go, or before we go into like the nit and grit of this system, let's talk about the difference between compound interest and amortization loan, right? So amortizing loan, I'm sorry. All right, check this out. So again, we're going to have two officers here. The officer on the right, the amortizing interest officer, we'll call this officer BLM. All right. So Officer BLM. In this example, Officer BLM takes a loan for $50,000 with a 6% interest for a term of 25 years. Okay. Over the course of this loan, Officer BLM will end up paying $46,645.21 in interest alone, guys. Because throughout the course of the loan, this officer will be paying down the principal, which with each payment made, final balance is 0. So you see here, the final balance is 0, and he paid an interest over $46,000. All right. Now the bottom officer, we'll call him Officer Chuck Norris. Officer Chuck Norris takes the same loan, $50,000, from his savings account with 6% interest for over 25 years. See that? So what happened here? For the 6% interest for over 25 years, he earned right there $164,593.53 in interest. I didn't bother putting the 53 cents in there, but it's there. Because the principal of the term increases as the interest compounds, right? Just like when you're paying off this in this example, all right? So it continues though. So the saving interest earned here was $164,593. Minus the debt interest paid was $46,645. So if we subtract, there you go, the interest paid, he's going to get a net gain of $117,000, $117,948. Okay. But wait, like, remember that initial, under this equation, remember that initial $50,000 that he borrowed? That money is still his. He doesn't lose that money, right? So if in the example that if he would have used cash, borrowed cash from the bank, and he would have taken it and he paid back the interest, well, that 50 G's is gone. Well, here, well, actually, I haven't finished the video. Here, the final balance for him is actually $214,593. Why? Because of that. Because the original $50,000, he doesn't lose it. And that's the example of the banking system that I'm talking about. All right, let's see. All right. So types of infinite banking vehicles, okay? So I already talked about the HELOC. That was an example. Another vehicle is a stock portfolio. You could actually borrow money from your stock portfolio it's called a margin loan. You can do that. You have qualified accounts. A qualified account where you could do all that I just spoke about. Is like a 401k, IRA, a mutual fund. You could actually take money and borrow from your own 457B plan. You could actually borrow from your own 457B plan and pay it back. So that's the type of vehicle we're talking about. You have a savings account and bank certificates of deposits, a home equity line of credit, which for me is the easiest example to give. So in a HELOC, if you're not aware of it, you go to the bank and you say, hey, I'll put my house down as collateral. That's my asset, my house. Let me borrow money. And then whenever you borrow, you take credit from your house, you pay it back, and that house is an asset. The purpose behind the house is that you think the house value is going to keep going up, right? So that's an idea. And lastly, what Scott talked about, what the wealthy use is permanent life insurance. So that's what the wealthy have used in those examples in the personal banking system. That's what I'm talking about here, right? So during these, let me go back here. During all these 5 wealth accumulation vehicles, these 5 type of personal banking vehicles, what do you want to look for when you're going to determine which one you're going to use, okay? You want to look for four of these characteristics: either how safe it is, how liquid it is, the rate of return, and how is it taxed. Just like Cassie was mentioning, you want to keep a lot of your money, so you want to know how you're being taxed. So under the first one, under the savings account, okay, It's safe because it's backed by FDIC up to $250,000, right? So your money's safe there. How liquid is it? The moment you go, you could get it. Matter of fact, now you could go and use Zelle or PayPal or whatever you want. You get cash really fast, so that's good. The rate of return is bad though. How much does your bank pay? 0.0 miserable, right? 0.01 or something. And then how is it taxed? It's tax horrible. It doesn't have an X there, but it should have an X. It's taxed on your tax rate of that year. Let's try the other example, the qualified account. 401k is your 457B plan to all the police officers here. Well, how safe is it? It's not really safe because it's kind of tied to the market. You know what happened in 2009? What happened a couple months ago with COVID? What happened this morning, right? So your stock could go down. So how safe is it? Not very safe. How liquid is it? It's not liquid at all. Like, well, it's liquid, but you have to take time to acquire it. Your rate of return is good though. If you have your money, your assets with someone who's managing the money, like Scott said, then it's good, it's better. How's it taxed? It's taxed favorably, which is why people use that. Now, the HELOC. HELOC, how is it safe? No, it's not. You all remember the 2008 crisis. If you don't remember, it sucked. So it's not safe. HELOC is good. It's fast. You get the money out quickly, but it's really unsafe. The rate of return is bad because of the same thing. You don't know what the market's how the market's gonna come in future years. And how is it taxed? It's very favorable, right? Stock portfolio. How safe is it? Absolutely not. It's not safe at all. It's liquid, good rate of return if you're a gambler, and it's not tax favorable. And now the last one, life insurance, okay, what we're talking about. And this is why Scott mentioned that the wealthy they use life insurance as a wealth accumulation tool because it's super safe, okay? It's backed by multi-billion-dollar conglomerates, okay, where the banks actually invest their money in life insurance companies. You didn't know that. A lot of people didn't know that, but that's a fact, okay? Governments spend. CalPERS, our CalPERS system is investing their money in life insurance as well. Why? Because that's like, it's a sure thing. How liquid is it? Just like that, you know, you want it, it's right there. Rate of return is great. With the rate of return, the important thing here is sit down with someone who knows how to play the numbers. That way you could get a good rate of return. And how is it taxed? By far is the best one yet because it's tax free. This is the reason why the wealthy use this. This is the reason why the Rockefellers have created a legacy of wealthy individuals. The Rothschilds have, countries owe money to the Rothschilds because of this, all right? So if the wealthy use this type of vehicle, why wouldn't we? Yeah, we're police officers. We're not financial advisors. Well, might not be a financial advisor, but let me tell you, the more education I get on finances, the more I think like, why don't my brothers and sisters use these types of systems? All right, so now let's go back and talk about cash, because a lot of people, you might say, well, isn't cash king? Yes, it is, but if it's in your hand and you know how to use it, right? So last video here. So the system that we could build for you versus cash, right? And we actually, with the gentleman that our client that we met this morning, this is what kind of I was trying to explain to him in terms of why we use this system, okay? Why the Rockefeller method, why the banking system. And this is exactly why, watch. Okay. All right, the true cost of paying, where is it? Okay, this officer here, where's the play button? All right. The true cost of paying, this officer is saving $1,000 a month over 12 years with an interest of 6%, okay? And every 6 years here, and this is the example of cash, by the way, every 6 years here, this officer takes cash out of his savings. All right, and boom, same thing. He accumulates cash. On the year 12, he brings it down. Okay, so let's say that at the end of 6 years, they've accumulated $83,704 right here, and then they use it to pay a car. If they would invest their own cash, this officer would drain the cash and start saving again. Okay, that's pretty much what you see time and time again for 30 years. And how much is he going to have at the end of 30 years if he thinks cash is king? So at the end of 30 years, this guy's just going to have $83,704. Now green. Now I'm colorblind. Green in this example, now we'll call that Officer Green, with this same amount of money, this guy's enjoying an uninterrupted interest compounding using the Officer Rockefeller method. Okay, the method we're talking about. At the end of 30 years, this officer is going to have not 83,000, but this officer is going to, let's see, let me play it. This officer is going to have 1,017,000, and let's see. There you go, 1,017,620. Okay, that's the power of compound interest instead of cash. So a lot of people say, well, you know, it's better to have cash. Well, not in that example. There's that guy again. Okay. We're almost done here. Actually, we are done. Awesome. So as you can see, let's see if I can, there you go. We are Athena Financial, and so some of the associates that you saw today was Scott, Stephanie, Cassidy, Annette, and myself. And we are definitely here for all of you in any financial assistance possible. If you have any questions whatsoever regarding any of these things that we have shared, please don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to send us an email. Don't hesitate to send us a message. And let's see. Boom. And, oh, we have a question there. Invest, yes. That's not a question, it's a statement. You must invest. Awesome. So this went a little over, so an hour 38 minutes. Thank you guys very much. You guys have been amazing. If there's no more questions, do we have any team member that wants to say anything?
Maybe if you can put the slide with the office information and all that for a little bit.
Boom. All right, let's do that.
And while Lorenzo does that, I do see that we have a question in the Q&A from Vince Flynn. So we will get more information to you on that, Vince.
Awesome. All right. Well, here we are. We are Athena Financial. We're located out of the Glendora office. It's 1343 East Gladstone. We are building, as we speak, an office here closer to Orange County and LA in Fullerton. But you have to realize that because of this whole pandemic stuff, our business has actually exploded and became easier. Why? Because we're now using Zoom. This business is through technology, and it's amazing. We are now assisting people in over 50 states. So if you know someone who could help us, please, by all means, let's see, let us know. All right. Bye, guys. Perfect. Have a good night.